Hi everyone, welcome to this life group summary video. So much has changed, hasn't it, in the last few months. So much has changed for me. Life looks different, it feels different. I'm sure it's the same for you. And yet, so much has stayed the same as well, actually. I guess the big pillars in my life certainly have stayed the same. And for Citygate, it's true that in one sense, again, so much has changed. We're now on site as well as online. We're scattered from one another more than we get the opportunity to gather together now. And we have to face the fact that church life may never be quite the same again. But in another sense as well, so much has stayed the same. God is unchanged, the truth is unchanged, and the church is still the church with the same values, the same vision, and largely the same people. So with that in mind, this Sunday we began a new series, Reforming Church. It's always been the task of the church actually to reform, to take what it essentially is and all that God has said about his people and to work that into the current context. That's what the church does, has always done. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at 8 terms that the New Testament uses to describe the church. They are people, family, community, temple, unity, body, disciples, and witnesses. And we're going to ask, what did the writers mean by using those words? And what does it mean for us to own those words as biblical words for the church in our current context where we're reforming the church? So we look this today at 1 Peter chapter 2 verses 4 to 10. It would be good for you to read that. Now then, if you take a look at the Bible, one way of understanding it is to see some of the threads or themes that work in it from beginning to end. It's obviously much more than just a random collection of writings. There's one author with one great storyline going on, and you can trace various threads from beginning to end in the Bible. And one of those threads that you can trace is people. The fact that from the beginning to the end of God's story, he has been creating and looking for a people who will love him, who will know him, who will be obedient to him, and who will sort of own his name in the earth and carry his fame before all peoples on the earth. And that story goes all the way, of course, from Adam and Eve, who are called to be fruitful, fill the earth, carry God's name, and it goes right through the Bible, all the way through all sorts of situations and contexts and so on, to the magnificent story or picture at the end in Revelation 21, where we read this: "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying," this bit, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God." It's like this story of God choosing a people to love him, know him, be with him has finally come to conclusion as they are forever with him and know him perfectly forever. But the question we have to ask, and we were asking this morning, is what sort of people are God's people to be? What is it that marks out this people, the people of God, from all the other peoples on the face of the earth? And we have to go back to 1 Peter chapter 2 to find our answer, where Jesus where the writer Peter sees both Jesus and his people in terms of the Old Testament temple. Lots of references in there to Jesus and the people in regard to the spiritual house of God, the temple. And of Jesus, he makes 2 particularly important points. One, that Jesus is the cornerstone in this building, the temple. Verse 4, he says, "A stone in Zion," talking of Jesus, "a chosen and precious cornerstone." And then verse 7, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." He's the foundation piece and the first stone to be laid, by which every other stone in the building takes its cue and finds its alignment. And then he says as well that Jesus is the living stone. Verse 4, as you come to him, the living stone. Jesus is it's not just a lump of concrete, dead and stuck in the ground. We know, of course, that he is risen to new life from the dead. He is alive and imparts his life to every other stone in this temple, this building, the church, whom he calls in this passage, we are living stones. So Jesus is the cornerstone and the living stone, and we gain our direction from him, our orientation from him, and also our life from him. So firstly, we were saying in this first week that we are a people by design. We're meant to be a people, which of course is a huge challenge for most modern Western folk who live in such an individualistic society. But God has called us to be a people, and even in these scattered times, to find ways to express the fact that we are called together to be a people. Sometimes it's a challenge, but it's God's grace to us and his intent that he should be known through a people. We're his people by design. And then we're a people with dignity. Let me try these words on you from verse 9 of the passage. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Now let's be honest, it's not always the case that we feel like that. So let me recommend that you speak those words to yourself, that you wake up with those words, that you put them on your mirror, that you go to bed with those words, and begin to see yourself as God sees you. What is the people of God? What's special? Well, we're a people by design, and we're a people with extraordinary dignity because we are in Christ. And finally, we're a people with definition. That's going back to the cornerstone metaphor, of course, that every stone in this temple takes its cue from Jesus Christ, the cornerstone. So every question we ask, how should I live in this situation? How should I respond to this insult that I've been given? How do I practice forgiveness and friendship and faithfulness? What should be my priorities in life? Well, we take our cue from Jesus, the cornerstone. He is our model. He's the one that we base everything off. People by design, a people with dignity, a people with definition. The people of God are a very special people. So whether we're gathered or whether we're scattered, which is more the case at this moment, every moment of every week, everywhere that we find ourselves, we are God's people. Enjoy that, delight in it. Let's live out this great life as the people of God.